Welcome back to Straight Facts. It's Monday morning. We're talking about the quad. Do Arsenal have a real chance of winning all 4 trophies and tournaments that they are in? Or could City surpass them this year and actually win more trophies when most people expected none from them maybe a few weeks ago? We're talking Tottenham and their survival in the Premier League under the brilliant, the great, the magnanimously supported Igor Tudor. We're looking at Man United, who have reportedly rejected Unai Emery and will not be approaching the Aston Villa manager. We're also taking a look at Tonali as his exit from Newcastle appears to be advancing after what was a brilliant weekend for him, with 2 brilliant strikes away from home against Unai Emery's Aston Villa as well. We're joined, as you can see, by Jords and by Jamie this morning. Gentlemen, how are we both?
Very good. Happy Monday.
Not too bad, looking forward to a week of where Spurs about to get some new manager bounce, come just in time, it's looking all right,
Is that where Arsenal Dodge is next?
You know it. We're about to put a dagger in someone's heart, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's actually a guarantee. This weekend, Spurs will put a dagger in someone's heart. Either Arsenal's or Man City's. One of the two are gonna get hurt like an incel at Valentine's Day. Do you know what I mean? Someone's getting hurt this weekend. On your new manager, though, George, I really wanted to start with this conversation because, all jokes aside, how are you feeling about this? Because I mean, his managerial record is suspect, to say the least. Most people had no idea. When it was announced, people were doing the whole, is this the real David Ornstein account? Or is that one of the fake ones posting random news? Because I'd never heard of him, if I'm honest with you. I don't think many people had. Are you feeling confident that he's going to be able to save you from the drop? Because you are in a relegation battle. Or are you feeling a sense of, do you feel like a turkey has caught Bernard Matthews staring at them?
Nah, to be honest, I knew who Henry VIII was because of his time at Juventus. I see when he first came into Juventus as an interim manager, he started off pretty well. Second half of the season was pretty good, but one thing I knew about him is his teams did struggle going forward, because I think at the start of this season in particular, I remember them going on a long run of games where maybe they only scored like 2 or 3 goals. So that's, I don't know loads of things about him. As you said, his managerial record, he's not spent more than 78 games, I think I heard, at one club. He's pretty much had 12 different clubs in about 13, 14 years. So that says enough about him. And he's definitely not a long-term solution. Now, for what he's coming in for, I think when you have an interim, one thing that is key is you've got someone that understands their role, whether that's going to be a long-term and that they're coming in to build something, or they're coming in to just do the specific job, and that's to keep Spurs up. He understands his role. He has some experience coming into teams that have been in similar positions, being able to give them an uplift. And, that's exactly what we need. We don't need someone to come in and upset the whole apple cart, but we need an uplift. We need someone that can come in and instill some confidence into this squad, because it lacks leadership. It's very clear to see the one person who is our captain doesn't lead in the right way, doesn't lead by example, has probably set bad examples for a lot of the young players throughout the last year or two. And we need a manager that can grab a control of him and control that whole situation. And I think Igor Tudor could come in and do that. From what I know of him, even just someone who has playing experience at the highest level, he's someone who the players I would expect would respect him because of that. But also someone who's managed at Juventus, managed at Galatasaray, managed at some decent level clubs. When we compare him to Thomas Frank, he's actually managed at, clubs where there is a high expectation, clubs where they are expected to win, Juventus, Galatasaray, clubs who expect to compete in their respective leagues. So I think he's coming in with the right experience. Now, with regards to his football and all of the tactics side of things, who knows whether it's going to work. Spurs don't really have that much players available. So I think tactically was never going to really be too important for this managerial appointment. It was more of regarding how good of a manager is he? How good can he get, what can he do to get the best out of the group of players that he is going to have available, because he's not going to have a lot of the best ones. And I don't know whether Spurs got this right. We're only going to have to see when it plays out whether it's going to be right or not. But would he be my choice? No. But look, hey, I do think this does smell a bit of panic. It does smell a bit of, Spurs looked around and said, who's available, who can sort this out. And I don't know if people would have heard, Paul O'Keefe said about 2 months ago that Fabio Paratici wanted to bring in Igor Tudor and wanted Frank sacked. So it's rather convenient that, he comes in, he's the first option. I reckon it's probably conversations that were already had, and he was probably understanding that, if he's going to come in, he understands that he's not going to get longer than the first 3 months. That works out for Spurs. So, look, let's see how it does play out. I'm not going to be hugely anticipated to be like a good manager or a good start for him, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be terrible. Like I said, we are in a relegation battle, but it is favorable for us when you look at the teams that are below us. West Ham, they're the only team that can really get out of the relegation, and I think we've got to play them still as well, so that gives us a slight advantage. Plus, I just think that we'll get out of the relegation. I think we'll probably finish around 11th or 12th and, put the season in the bag, one of them ones.
What were you saying, Jamie? I mean, there's a Kate here in the comments that said, morning, Kate and Jim, by the way, says, decent enough appointment. We will have enough to stay up, I'm sure. Do you see there being enough to stay up here for Tottenham? Do you think this is the right coach to do it? Or does this stink of panic? Is this a manager that's going to put them further into the mire?
To be honest, I don't know enough about him to say whether he's going to be able to pull Spurs out of it. I more look at Spurs' squad and say that they have more quality than, say, West Ham. I think, as George pointed out, that they're probably the only ones that are going to be able to mount the challenge to try and get out of the relegation scrap. But I'd probably say it's between West Ham and Forest to decide who goes down. It'd be very, very difficult for Spurs to get dragged into that, because I think they have quality players, even though they're maybe not performing to the same level that they should have. Like, I think Solanke's good. Obviously, Van de Ven, like Porro is decent as well. Like, they definitely do have quality there, and I think they probably will end up finishing around 11th or 12th. In terms of like going forward, I think Ange's comments were interesting, because obviously he only left at the start of summer, and like he said it as it is. You know what I mean? Like, Spurs, they say they're a big club, but it more comes down to about how you act. And like, if you want to go out and you want to buy the best players, you need to be able to pay them the big wages and act like a big club. Like, United did that in the summer, where they didn't get Champions League football. Spurs beat them in the Europa League final, and then they go out and they pay the big money, the big wages to players that then inevitably end up at United. And Spurs don't want to do that. That's just like, that's the way Ange said it. Like, when they want to go in for the likes of Gahey and Buemo, Cunha, they didn't want to pay, say, the bigger wages that, say, other clubs would want to offer, when you have to offer those wages to get those types of players in. And until they kind of get out of that cycle, until they show that ambition in the transfer market, they'll continuously be like that. Whereas I think before, they were probably punching a little bit above their weight with the likes of, say, they bought really well. With some players that maybe were on lower wages. You think of like they brought in, like, say, Modric, Dele Alli, Eriksen, Kane obviously came through the academy, and they were willing to pay, like, say, Kane the big wages because he was obviously one of their own. But all the others kind of then eventually went, and there's only so long before you're able to replace that. Similar to, like, say, the likes of a Southampton or Brighton. If you're constantly bringing players in and you're selling them for big money, you're eventually going to get caught out where the players that you bring in aren't going to be able to replace the players that you already have. And that's the situation I think Spurs are probably in now, where the quality of players that they had previously aren't up to the same standard as the ones that they had. And they're kind of just starting to fade a little bit to back into the mix of the middle of the Premier League. And that's just where they're going to stay until they compete. And they should be able to, because they have the infrastructure there to be able to go out and pay those wages, but they just don't want to right now.
No, I agree. I think that there's more to this than just the manager in the sort of the medium to long term. For me, I feel it stems down to whether or not, if the players were truly downing tools, not performing because of a dislike towards Frank, which I've read a number of reports on, that they hated the way he was making them play, the instructions, the coaching. They weren't able to express themselves. It was too negative. The only times they performed is when they grabbed the ball by the horns in the second half of games and said, we're just going to play our way. And they were very good at times. if it's true that they were just completely despondent with Thomas Frank, I think they'll be okay. Because Tudor will just come in, put his arm around the shoulder, play your way, guys, express yourself. I'm going to adapt to you. I'll give a little bit of structure, but you guys go and play your football. Spurs will be okay. The problem is if that isn't true. The problem is you've had 2 managers 2 years running who play very different styles of football in the league. One was open, expansive and attacking. The other was more pragmatic. And both had you round and near the relegation zone. So it could be you've had 2 managers 2 years running who the squad don't want to play for. So that's why you're right down near the bottom. Or there's a bigger issue here. Equally, what I find fascinating is that both those managers who the players weren't playing for were doing brilliantly in Europe. One won the Europa League. The other one has you 4th in the Champions League. And yes, you haven't played the hardest teams. There are people that had harder draws. But you played better teams than you played last year in the Conference League. And you're 4th or 5th in the Champions League table. So this is such an interesting conundrum. And I don't think there is a single person who can find the smoking gun, who can go, this is the reason Spurs are in a relegation fight. I don't think it's as simple as Thomas Frank's tactics, because they've worked in Europe and the players seemingly worked hard in those games. I don't think it's as simple as Big Ange was too expansive and players didn't like it. Because again, the way he was, I know he played differently in Europe. He played more pragmatically. Well, the players love playing pragmatically in Europe. They enjoyed it. You won loads of games. So why would they then go, fuck doing that in the league? So for me, nothing quite adds up as a smoking gun. That's the one reason. I'm being so intrigued by this. I'm a bit like Jamie. I don't know enough about Tudor to say he's good or bad in reality. The only thing that I would be concerned with is he's only ever won, on average, 41% of his games. That's 3% higher than the win rate that Thomas Frank has at Tottenham. So what you do need from Tudor is for him to improve on his current win rate to get you out of this matter. That's something that needs to happen in relation to that. But it's an intriguing one for me. And I said this earlier on when I was with Henry Wright. I've got a message this morning to all the Tottenham content creators. Be ahead of the game. Get your CVs updated. Get your LinkedIn profile updated, because a lot of you are going back to the workforce. You know, you will no longer be on Fanalysis with my friend Jamie here. You know, there will be a lot of opportunities. The Overlap will not have you on anymore. TalkSport, all the Spurs guys on TalkSport, it's over because they don't cover the Championship in the same way. So listen, get LinkedIn updated. Get your CVs updated, because you've got to get back in. You want to get your job applications in first, because there's going to be a massive flooding of Spurs fans from the social media world looking for jobs. So, by the way, there's a couple of Spurs fans online who have never admitted they're Spurs fans. They pretend to be fans of Arsenal and other clubs. They're going to be okay. They're going to be all right, because they faked it, and now they've made it. But get your CVs updated, because plus Football Terrace will be hiring in the summer. We're doing some new things. So we might have a couple of jobs here for you guys as well. So let us know. But yeah, I feel a bit sorry for Spurs fans, but I'm looking forward to your relegation battle. It's going to be amazing to watch. And I do kind of want you to go down, not even for personal reasons, just I do think it'd be the biggest relegation since Man United in the 70s. And I don't mean it in a horrible way, Jords. I don't mean it in a nasty way. It's the social experiment of it. I want it, watching the meltdown is something about that. I find, you know, when a tragedy happens, like, I'm not even going to mention, you know, massive tragedies where buildings are on fire or a plane's had an accident. No one likes it. But you know, it's like everyone has a fascination with looking at it. It's like, I want to see, though. You know, whenever there's an incident, the police try and push people away because people always want to see it. I feel a bit like that. I feel like I want to rubberneck. I think they call it rubbernecking. I really want to rubberneck on this and watch it. But viewers, let us know what you think, right? Let us know what you think. Kate here says Terry the Gooner wanting Spurs to go down. Something to do with that. I'll be honest with you. I don't want it from my dad. But then you might win the league. You might, but what I'd also like to see
get out of him. I said you might win the league. Winning the Championship means nothing.
Some Spurs fans will say that's a win.
Start sounding like Wolfie and them, man. Like, honestly, the Championship would be horrible. And yeah, it would kill us as a club. Like, I don't even know how Spurs would run. Like, we'd be such a loss. Like, as a just a company as a whole, we'd start selling so many. we'd fall apart. We'd start to fall into a very similar space where West Ham are in, where, you know, they've got the big stadium, they've got all like everything that they need to build a big club, apart from the ambition from the owners, and that's the one thing that we've missed for so long. And, you know, just quickly commenting on Ange's comments, I think he made some good points, and I did agree with some of the things he was saying. I do think he did use the timing to try and push his own narrative, to try and make himself seem better. And, you know, he sort of, in that moment, his ego took over. He started to talk about how it would have been the same if he was there, you know, how Spurs lack ambition because we sacked a manager after winning it, and he tried to liken it to the Mourinho. And it was, yeah, he was very smart with the timing and some of the things he was saying. And that's what I disagreed with. I think the way he went about saying certain things, I was just like, yeah, nah, and we know what you're doing here. There's clearly a hidden agenda. But some of the overarching points regarding the wages, regarding the ambition of the club, you know, to there is to do, but not actually doing much. I do agree with some of those points. And you know what, someone did need to say it. As much as I don't like Ange, I'm not like a huge fan of him, I think somebody needed to say it, needed to come out and put that pressure on the board publicly from a figure that actually, you know, recently been in and around Spurs, because the likes of Pochettino, Conte and Mourinho probably just didn't care enough. But like for managers that were around Pochettino and so on, he's protected relationships, because as we're seeing, still linked to the job till now. So Ange, I do think he's definitely done himself some harm, and I don't think he'll get you know, hired in the Premier League again, because I don't think any Premier League club will want a manager who comes out and speaks on the board like that. But ultimately, it did need to be said. So shout out to him for that.
Yeah, no, I reacted to that the other day, and I thought it was fascinating to hear. I did hear a few United fans go, "Oh, our ex-managers never speak like this," and I'm sitting there going, "I've fucking heard them talk like this." The problem is with a lot of Man United fans is they say things that don't fit, that don't. It's United fans pretend like our ex-managers haven't spoken like this because it exposes the fact that we have to do more to get our owners out. And Man United fans don't really want to. Man United fans do this thing where they lip sync about the owners and go, "Oh, yeah, owners out, owners out." All they really care about is winning trophies or the ticket prices being lowered. Like all the protests that are going on at the minute, most of it, like you saw what Sir Jim said last week. And listen, I'm not telling people what their politics has to be. Some people are allowed to agree with him, because I live in a world where people are allowed to think like that. People are allowed to disagree with him, and that's absolutely fair and fine as well. But I'm seeing some of these supporters groups, they go, "Oh, Sir Jim, this proves Sir Jim's a bastard." You go, okay, what are they going to say? And then everything else they write is about ticket prices. And I'm sitting there and going, this is not a moment to be talking about ticket prices. A much bigger issue here. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him, there's a much bigger situation here than ticket prices. But that's your angle, which is fine. That's allowed to be your angle. But if the ticket prices drop tomorrow, I can guarantee you all this: there'd be no more protests, which means the debt and the way we're actually run, the decision makers that we have at the club, the fact that all these bad decisions on transfers and how the money's been spent in the past 13 years has led to where we are, that would all just go unchecked. As long as the fans that go to games will be in charge of what they think is an acceptable price on tickets, they don't care about anything else. And I find that to be a problem, because it just means you'll roll over and have your belly tickled as long as you're okay. And I think the same can be said about a lot of football clubs, that we do a lot of talking about getting our owners out or wanting better owners, but most of us don't have the stomach or strength of mind to do anything about it. And Big Ange saying what he did will make some Spurs fans go, "Yeah, you're right." But then it's like, well, what's next then, Spurs fans? Are you going to renew the most expensive season tickets in the world? Are you going to go to I think about all the businesses that surround your stadium that have been impacted by the fact that you have all these brilliant bars and eateries inside your stadium now. And the whole point of that was so your club gets fans into the ground earlier to spend money with them. That impacts the pubs, the cafes, and everything else around the club. And I sit there and go, so just as an outsider's view, you don't like Ineos, you don't like ENIC and how they're running the club. Well, then why would any of you spend a single penny of your money in that stadium before a game? I know you're going to the game, you don't want to give your tickets up, but why don't you spend that money in the cafe outside or the pub outside rather than giving it to the club? And these are the little things where I go, if you're doing that, as much as you might say, "I don't like ENIC," I sit there and go, but you're funding it, you're feeding it, you're enabling it to happen by, you're literally feeding it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like having a weed in your garden that's killing all your other plants. Oh, have you ripped out the roots? No, I've fed it. I gave it some fucking Miracle Grow. Like, that's essentially what all of our fan bases do that moan about our owners. They feed the weed that kills the flowers.
You know what's funny about that, Toe? I see today, I went on the Spurs website. What do I see? First pop-up, 40% off on all Spurs kits. And I'm like, yeah, perfect timing. I bet all the Spurs fans are going to flood today and be like, yeah, I'm going to get my kit for cheap now. And it's like, no, this is when you don't buy nothing. You ignore the sale. You wait, do you know what? I ain't buying nothing till the end of the season, because what are we supporting? What are we like? What are we showing to them that we want this? This is what's acceptable. It's just, yeah, everyone sports in their own way, so it is what it is. But yeah, man, I just find it funny. I do.
No, I think owners are so far out of the equation, though. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you think of the Glazers, even Liverpool's owners. They're like, they live in a different reality to all of us. So it's not like, obviously, football clubs in essence and like the kind of core embodiment of football clubs is community, and I think to fans it is, but like from an owner's perspective, where I think it's 13 of the owners now are American, like billionaires or millionaires, where like they're, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So like they're so far out of the reality of the situation that like they couldn't care less.
No, I agree. And, you know, there's a comment here earlier on today, and this is what I mean by our ownership. People don't care. Terry, speak on how Sir Ratface has renamed Man United Reform FC. Well, I have spoken about it on my own. You know, it's really funny, right? I have spoken about this publicly. I've tweeted about it. I've done videos about it. But the one thing I will push back on, and I know that straight away, I guarantee you, I'm going to write the word in the private chat so the boys can see. All right. Okay. So you're going to see people write this. The word I've just put in the private chat is the word you're now going to see. I don't like what Sir Jim said at all. I think it was too much of a generalization. Too much. I'm not going to get into the politics on what Sir Jim said. Like I've stated already, I think people are entitled to have their political view. I think we're in a very dangerous place in the world if we stop allowing people to have political views that we disagree with. That's as most as I'm going to go into on the political side of things. But what I will always push back on is when people try and make Man United fans feel guilty and bad about something their owner or one of their players said. That's a childish thing to do. Because from my perspective, a lot of United fans don't agree with Sir Jim. By the way, some do, which shows you there's a dichotomy there in the fan base. But let's have this right. Start going through what your owners do. Start going through the political parties they fund or support, both domestically here in the UK or in America or around the world. Go and look at some of the other nations that certain owners or previous owners of the Premier League donate to and what parties they donate to, or beliefs they have, or the way their business practices operate. Now, for me, this isn't about saying it's okay for Sir Jim to do this because somebody else's owner does. What I'm speaking on here is Man United fans are not accountable. The same as Chelsea fans are not accountable for things that Roman has or hasn't done. Liverpool fans are not accountable for the money that FSG invested to certain political parties. Tottenham, very similar. We're not accountable. So the only thing I ever really push back on is it's not Man United fans' fault. If one of our players from our squad right now goes and commits a crime, it's hardly a reflection of the way Jords, Jamie, or me behave as human beings. And I feel like it's something we've got to push back against, this petty point scoring. And it's in what you normally get a response on is the sort of, Terry, that's just whataboutism. No, it isn't whataboutism. If I was using it as an opportunity to defend Sir Jim, that's whataboutism. What I'm talking about, I had someone come in one of my group chats the other day going, can't wait to cook you on this. I mean, cook me on what? What's the Jim said? And why are you cooking me? I didn't say it. Yeah, but he's your owner. And then I pointed out some of the things that his owner's done. And he went, yeah, we won't talk about that then. I went, exactly, because if you want to start making me guilty for what Sir Jim said, you're fucked, bruv. You're going to prison, actually. You've committed war crimes if we're going to start playing that game. So listen, condemn Sir Jim all you want. You're not going to see me defend him on what he said, but start making it about me or Man United fans. And you can do one because we're not accountable for that at all. Because you start playing group blame games, just think about the road you're going down and what else can be done in life if you blame a whole group of people based on something one person connected to them did. It's a dangerous precedent to set in this world, my friends. Moving on from that and speaking a bit more on Man United, it's reported today, gents, that we have rejected Unai Emery. Essentially, we will not be considering Unai Emery as one of our new managers going into the let me just change this for a second, going into the, because Jamie will be back with us very soon. We rejected Unai Emery as a potential new manager at Manchester United. Do you think that's the right thing for us to have done?
just to confirm, when you say reject, do you mean like he applied? Like, I don't know, like.
I'm reiterating that what the headliner said here. What we have essentially, we don't know whether he's been offered to us by his agent or not. That hasn't come out yet. But Man United have essentially said that he is not a coach that we will be interviewing or we're interested in signing. So we've kind of made that. I suppose it's a little bit like, you know, I haven't asked the young lady out on a date yet, but she's already tweeted, "I never would date that guy." Do you get what I mean? We're kind of in that mode. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think with the Amorim situation, how it played out, the three at the back, I wouldn't say defensive football, but it's not attacking. It's not Man United. It's not, you know, it hasn't got that style, that pizzazz that's gonna bring to the Man United fan base and keep you guys together. So I feel like the Man United board have just been warned off of another three at the back manager. I generally think it's that. I think you guys won't look at those types of managers. Maybe wrong, because I think if Tuchel is available, completely different situation. I think they'd jump at the chance to go in at Tuchel. But with the likes of Amorim, Emery managers who, I suppose putting Amorim and Emery in the same conversation are very disrespectful to Emery, because he's a manager who, me personally, I rate highly, was one of the best managers in the Premier League. But I don't know whether it's a right or wrong decision. I think Emery, and as many people have pointed out in the past, is probably, I think Aston Villa and clubs of that level are best for him, because they lack the expectation of having to perform and having to win a title and compete. But he will also tends to always overachieve with them because of that expectation isn't as high. So when he's aiming to get top four, it's a massive achievement for him. I think he's good for that type of level, playing Europa League and, you know, going into the Champions League, but not really doing much. I think he's probably suited there. Now, for Manchester United, I don't really know what is next. What type of manager do you go for? Similarly to Spurs, we've both had many different types of managers since, you know, since Ferguson. You've gone with the proven, you've gone with the unproven, the young, the upcoming. And I'm not saying none of them have worked out, because you guys have still had good times within that period, but none of them have had sustained success across 4 to 5 years. I think you guys personally back Carrick. Give Carrick the job. Maybe don't give him the job long term. Give him another 1-year contract. Test him out and be like, do you know what? We're going to keep you for another year. Now, he may not want to take that, but I think for the job and for what it will entail for him, he will happily take another 1-year extension, see how that plays out, and then potentially give him another longer-term contract. Because I think the familiarity is what you guys like, and what is always worked out at Man United. You bring someone who knows the structure of the clubs, people that everyone's familiar with, the players respect him because he's a legend that's won and was there during that Fergie era. I think you guys need someone who embodies that Fergie era to be there. And if we're talking of someone who can do that, Michael Carrick was there for 10 or 11 years, was there for long after that Fergie era, and was still that stalwart within the team who everybody used to look at and say consistency. And that's what he could bring to your club. So being honest, I think you give him the opportunity. Now, it's still very early on in this season to see, you know, if he does get into the top four, how he plays out across a 4 or 5 month period. But so far, it's looked really good. And let's be honest, like, why not?
The thing with keeping Carrick is, I'll come back to that in a second. I want to go to some of these comments that have come through here, because I think they're interesting. And let me just do one thing, because the overlay is not right. There you go. There we go. Sorry. Things that bother me. Gaz here says we'll opt for the cheapest option. That comes from what Sam's also said here, that it's from an insider saying United have ruled him out. It's purely because they have to pay compensation. And I suppose this depends on your disposition. I agree with this decision, though, but that's subjective, because I don't rate Unai Emery. I think Unai Emery is brilliant at Villarreal, brilliant at Sevilla, brilliant at Aston Villa's. I think as soon as he goes to a club where the expectation is much bigger, more intense, I feel that he crumbles. So therefore, I view it as not going for the cheapest option. I look at it as going for a safer option and a better option that doesn't waste money. So my view is, you spend 15, 20 million pound buying Unai Emery out of his contract. I think he's going to fail. That just feels like we've walked into the middle of Old Trafford on a match day and gone, woof, and lit 20 million pounds on fire. That's my view on it. I do not think he'll improve us long term. I think he'll crumble under the pressure. I don't think he can handle the heat in the kitchen. That isn't taken away from the brilliant things that he has done at other clubs. I just feel there are certain managers. Thomas Frank, it's not wrong to test it. Thomas Frank did well at Brentford, did brilliant in a well-organized, well-run club. He was perfect for them. Could he now replicate this somewhere else? Could he help a club that's a little bit broken fix itself and get better results? He's moved to a Tottenham. And let's be honest, the man was drowning. He looked like he'd run out of ideas. He looked like he was a fish out of water. He may get another chance in the future at another big club, but I doubt it. And it isn't wrong to test these managers that look like they could work at big clubs. But it's why I've really gone off the idea of Areolas, of Glasner's, Thomas Franks, these guys who haven't even yet been, most of them haven't even played at a giant club, let alone manage one. Unai Emery's the other end of that scale, which is he's had opportunities at big clubs. He's had opportunities at PSGs, and what I've read about him and what you read was going on at the time worries the living daylights out of me. I listened to a lot of people go, Xavi, get Xavi. He was at Barca. He played there. I read what Xavi said after he left Barca and how much it hurt him mentally and physically when he read the criticism about himself in the papers, and he struggled with that. And I'm sitting there going, fuck me, the media in England is going to cruise. You're Xavi, and they went easy on you at times because you're Xavi. But in the end, they went hard on you and you couldn't handle it. Man United media is going to eat you up and spit you out. And all this matters. And I just, for me, so some will say, Terry, we're just being cheap. Good. Because imagine wasting £20 million on compensation plus whatever we give him as a contract, then having to pay him out when we sack him. This is the maddest bit. If you think in 18 months we're going to be back where we are now anyway, well, aren't we better off going for the cheaper option and not wasting more money? I know it sounds, again, I'm not, I want a better manager, but Unai Emery isn't the guy to me. So I'm going to be really personal and subjective on this and go, it's absolutely the right decision. We have to be, I would rather Michael Carrick than Unai Emery. I'd rather Michael Carrick than Areola, than Glasner, than Zerbi. All of them right now worry me. Because everything I read into, you start doing more research into them and the things they say and the things they do. The Zerbi, the football's beautiful. On a footballing level, I love the Zerbi. But then you look at the amount of times he falls out with ownership, the amount of fights he has with players. My view is at United, that molehills get turned into mountains. How big are they going to turn the mountains into? And then it's just going to, I don't know, there's something about it for me. I think what we actually need is a manager that is cool, calm and collective. Of course, I want Luis Enrique, but I just don't think he's going to leave PSG. I worry about the people we're linked to. I get this horrible gut feeling that we're going to end up in 18 months with another. I don't want an up and comer unless they. I know someone got, but Carrick is the difference being Carrick understands Man United. And and the reason I'm saying this is because I don't think Man United are going to be ready to challenge for league titles for another 2 or 3 years. And I think whilst we maybe build a squad that a Luis Enrique or a Hansi Flick would love to take over, I feel like we just might need someone to steady the ship. And I feel bringing in an exciting prospect who's never been at this level, or a manager that's fouled at all the other big clubs they're at, I feel like that might set us back more. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer didn't take us backwards until he was kept on for a little bit too long. As soon as we lost that Europa League final, that he should have gone, and we should have gone to the next level of manager up, spent the money we spent on the right players, and I think we'd have continued to grow. What we did wrong is we kind of went backwards again, and we need to refrain from that. So, yeah, I'm really happy that we're not going in for Unai Emery. Something about him is a no-no. David here says Emery is a good shithouse manager up to a certain point. Being a Villa Everton type coach wouldn't work at the top club, end of, etc. PSG. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. Let's have a look at some more of your comments that have come through here. Zerbi will definitely have a fight. Yeah, I'm not worried about him having a fight. It's whether or not he has the ability to handle what comes with that media-wise. Jose struggled with Man United. Look at the clubs he'd been at. He struggled with the Man United press. And I always remember this famous article that came out where it said, "My life in Manchester is a disaster." And the shit he got for that headline. Turned out it was a lie. He didn't say his life in Manchester was a disaster. He said that, "I love Manchester. I'm treated lovely by the people. What's a disaster is when I try and go out for dinner with my family and you media follow me around taking pictures of me. The headline was, my life in Manchester is a disaster. He spoke about that for 3 or 4 press conferences running, and you could tell it got under his skin. And the media then knew they got under his skin. So what did they do? They didn't go, oh, that was bad of us, let's do less. By the way, that was the Guardian, who were meant to be like the picture of ethics, right? That was the fucking Guardian. And as soon as they realized they got under his skin, that's all they did every day. Every day it was like a new article, pulling on the thread. De Zerbi will have an argument, defend himself, get crucified, react to being crucified, and they go, we found the weak spot. The media are a little bit like trolls on the internet game that we all do. And you'll know this, Jords. People will know things about it. They know you've got kids, and they'll go, right, is he sensitive towards his kids being taken the piss out of? Is it his missus? Is it his skin color? Is it his religion? They look for the things that might trigger you to make you react, and they pull on them, right? And as soon as you react once to one of them, the trolls go, that's his trigger, so they continue to do it. That's what the media do to managers. And I just worry about De Zerbi and his short fuse. I think he'll get burned out.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about De Zerbi as well. Like you said, he's got a very short fuse. And even people like, look at us, Ange had a short fuse, and we saw how he struggled. And even until now, struggled with the media and handling it. And especially at Manchester United, like you say, the biggest club in England, it's only going to be more. It's only going to be someone that's not used to that environment, somebody who's not used to the English environment, but somebody who's not used to managing at Manchester United or somewhere at that level, or even playing, like I said, not playing at a big club previously. I think it might be too much for them. So I think you have to go with familiarity. You have to go with someone who's been there before. And if you can't get a top manager who's managed at that level before, which we know is very scarce at the moment, and that's one of my biggest concerns, Terry, I'll be honest, is who are the top managers? I think when you look back 10 or so years ago, you could look around and say there's a lot of big managers that you can go and get, managers that have won before, managers that have proven at the higher level. When you look around right now, there's really not that many. You've got about 3 or 4 options who are already employed. And then away from that, there really aren't many top managers who are proven, who have won things, and you would look at and say, yeah, I'd want to bring them in, because the turnover is so high. Like every team is turning over managers every 24 months or so at the moment. And, when you're trying to build a career, when you're trying to look around and see whose CV is good, I don't think anyone has a great CV at the moment. And that's really what makes it tough. That's why the manager market, when we look around, nobody's convinced in anyone, because there really isn't that many options.
Yeah, I feel like we're in this sort of space where maybe in 5-6 years' time, when there's a couple more guys that have won Champions Leagues, a couple more guys that have won Premier Leagues or La Ligas, sort of different names, because you had like Alonso, who a year ago everybody was like, I'd love him. He's been sacked by Real Madrid, and suddenly the stock goes down. I'm going to put it up on the screen, but I saw this mad. This is Diego Simeone's last 11 seasons, and again, I think he's a really good manager, and I also understand that he's hamstrung financially compared to the 2 big teams in Spain, and that's something to take into consideration. But sometimes it takes a graphic to, and if this is wrong and this person's trolling and he's won more than this, I haven't gone and checked it, so I'm only putting out this graphic, but it feels kind of right to me. It's definitely right on the Champions League side of things. When I saw this graphic, I'm just making it now to put it up on the screen to bring it alive, I was sort of flabbergasted, because he's considered a great manager, but then you look at the CV and I look at it and go, well, is there a guarantee at a club where there's a bigger expectation? It's Diego Simeone. That's his last 11 years. And there is a league title in there. That's amazing. And it's more than most other managers have done. But that tells you there's a lot of other managers that have got the league titles. Where are they? And I look at that and I think to myself, that's kind of crazy. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of, and I suppose the question is, and I don't know the answer, are there other clubs that have won more trophies than, outside of Barca and Real Madrid, are there other clubs that have won more trophies in Spain in the last 11 years than Atletico Madrid? And if so, they're not as wealthy as Atletico. Why haven't they won more if other teams have? And I don't know. I just sort of look at this and think to myself, you are right. There is this scarcity, this sparseness of managers that we consider elite. United keep getting the headlines of United are looking at elite managers, and I see Poch and De Zerbi's name on there, and I don't put them in the elite category, because for me, elite was always multiple league titles in the hardest leagues in the world, Champions League wins or big European wins, lots of domestic trophies, consistently finishing in the top positions in your league. And I look at those managers and go, we've not really had any of that. Poch, yes, he's won with PSG, but I know it sounds horrible. I always discount the PSG league stuff, because I just think like if Thomas Frank took over PSG next season, I think he'd win their league with them. Does that make sense? I think he would. So it's hard to look at that and go, that's the barometer. Sevilla won the Europa League. Yeah. Real Betis won things. And that's what I sort of mean. So it's really hard, It's really hard, as you say, to go, who are these elite guys? Maybe by the end of this season, Mikel Arteta moves into that category. But he's a prime example. If he wins nothing or just the League Cup, they go, no. If he wins the Premier League and the Champions League, maybe those conversations start to happen. But who are those guys? You've got Ancelotti, who's at Brazil. There's Klopp, who's kind of retired. There's Pep. There's Hansi Flick, I suppose, and Luis Enrique. They seem to be the five that I would look at and go, universally, we would probably all agree that universally, they are the elite managers. Outside of that, who Nagelsmann? But again, I wouldn't put Nagelsmann as elite yet.
Tuchel maybe, because he had Champions League win and,
Tuchel, yeah, maybe.
Competing and so on. But again, I think you'd be pushing him if you want him to be an elite manager. He's a top-end manager. Yeah, it's tough. You generally don't look around because there's not enough managers that have won leagues, and because of, I think so many of the leagues have been won by one club, Bayern Munich, PSG, Man City. It makes it hard because now you're only looking at one manager leading all these different competitions. Where are they? Where are the top managers? And Italy, I mean, I feel like Italian managers stay in Italy because whenever they leave Italy and they come to other leagues, they don't really do well. I think Ranieri and Conte have had some success in England, but away from that, nobody else has. So it's
Ancelotti, though.
Ancelotti, of course, yeah.
No,
what were you talking about? Sorry, I just came in there.
Yeah, by the way, so when we talk about that Man United have sort of rejected, and they're not going to be interviewing Unai Emery, and they're saying no to him. I think we both agreed with that decision that he's not in the elite category. He would be a very expensive risk because it's going to cost the better part of 20 million to buy him out his contract. I think there's massive question marks over that. But then we were just looking at the lack of elite managers, and we were just talking about even like Diego Simeone. We were saying Diego Simeone's last 11 seasons look like this from a trophy winning perspective. And then I was actually just looking while you guys were talking then. In that 11-year, so this goes back to the season of 2015. So since 2015, Valencia, Sociedad, Real Betis, and Athletic Bilbao have all won the Copa del Rey. So this is where I look at it and go, I'm not saying he isn't a top manager, but I sit there and think, who are the managers of the clubs at those times? I don't know who they all were that have won those trophies that beat him to it as well. And he actually hasn't even been, he hasn't even been in any of those finals. In fact, those finals, Mallorca have been in more finals. Osasuna have been in more finals. Valencia, Bilbao, Sevilla. There's been so many teams in there with less money.
So I don't know if you know, but they did beat Barcelona. I think 4-0 won the semi-final or quarter-final recently. So I think they're going to win it. I don't think they might win it this year, innit?
So they might want to win it, but I think that's why people have this thing in their mind of elite managers, because as I really rate Diego Simeone, but at the same time, maybe part of the reason we someone's elite 1 minute and not the next is because we look at their recent record, and you look at, if you go back beyond the last 11 seasons where he'd won a couple of La Ligas, got to those Champions League finals, we're like, wow, look at what he's doing with that budget. He's not been able to replicate it since, and I think that makes people worry, and I get that. Alonso, everybody was talking about Alonso as the next great manager, nearly did an invincible treble, wasn't the treble, but a 3 trophy season, nearly went and did that. The next year with Bayer Leverkusen wasn't as good. Gone to Real Madrid in his first season and got sacked. Suddenly there's all these I don't know if I want him now. Is he really elite? So I think there is an element there of, we kind of need a few of these managers. Maybe Diego Simeone's got to leave and go to a club with more money and start winning these trophies. Someone's got to give Alonso a chance and maybe he wins more trophies, because I do feel like there's a lack of managers coming through where we go, he's the guy. We've had the Ten Hags and the Ruben Amorims at Man United, where everyone's gone, they could be the next great thing. They ain't. They're not. Thomas Frank, someone that when he got the Spurs job, I advocated for it. I was like, this is a good opportunity for him to really show he's a top manager. And he's gone to a bigger club that isn't being perfectly run at the moment. And you can see, I think what it is as well is we don't have managers. Everyone's a head coach. Yeah. And unless you go into a club that's operating really well at that moment and has put together a really good squad and is in a good space, I feel like people struggle. I feel like people really struggle when and that's why I'm saying with United, we've got to be careful with who we bring in, because we're a couple of years away minimum from having a squad that you look at and go, really could compete. So whoever comes in has got to be prepared for that. And that's why I actually worry also about a Luis Enrique. But some people pay 25, 30 million a year to get him in. But if he comes in, doesn't really want to be there and doesn't have the stomach or the appetite for the 2 or 3 year build before we can play the absolute football that he wants, it's going to fail. If he hasn't got the, again, where it would work is if he says, listen, I know it's going to take us 2 or 3 years to get to the level that I want us playing at, but I am here for it because I want to be the guy to help fix United. I'm all for it. But outside that, I'd rather someone that is more suited for that stage of the build than someone who wants the ready-made product. And I think United have got that decision wrong on a few occasions. I think when we went for the sort of LVGs and the Joses, we weren't ready for them, even though they were at the end of their careers. And then when we've gone for the guys to try and rebuild it, we've often stuck with them a little bit too long. And I think, and then Ollie was the prime example of that. I think he did improve us over a couple of seasons. We got to a point where, okay, in the top 4 back-to-back seasons, had some finals. It should have been a case of thank you, and let's be sensible here, drop the emotion and move on to the next level of manager. And we didn't do it. And then we've gone backwards ever since. So, yeah, it's a tough decision for Man United. Sorry, Jamie, over to you. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just in there. Fabregas, he's a decent shout. I think what United need is it depends on, obviously, like Terry, you know United more than I do.
A lot of people keep saying, just briefly, is Fabregas has got the most expensive club in Italy, though. So just to add context to that, he's not obviously just being promoted through his great football and tactics.
No, yeah, but I suppose like you can have all the money in the world, but you need to be able to get them to play. Do you know what I mean? And I think he's obviously done well with them to get them to where they are. I think they're 5th, I think, in Serie A. So they're doing good. But I think, do you remember when Carrick, he talked about Ancelotti or Klopp? I remember he was in the Sky Studios and Brendan Rodgers just been sacked, and he said Liverpool's not an easy job, and they need a manager with the energy to take on the challenge. I think that's where United are at. Like if you bring in like someone like a bit more senior, like a Luis Enrique, who I think, as you said, Terry, he'll want to come in and come to like say get you from 2nd to 1st, not from 6th to 1st. Do you know what I mean? And that takes a few more years. So I think you need a manager that obviously has the belief and the ability and the hunger to want to stay there for a project and obviously build you up to where you want to go. But I think the difficult thing is with United, from what I always see, is that United fans don't have patience for that. So like, and it's normal because obviously the legacy that he's have in terms of like being where he's where. But it's like you come in and they don't get the time to do that. And obviously you need results and stuff like that as well. But like, it's just like whoever comes in, if they're not getting it right straight away, it's like, well, this isn't good enough. You know what I mean? And I think that's the issue that they come into.
I think Man United fans will give patience if the football is good. I think Ruben Amorim would have got time if he was winning more than 1 game a month. And that's the element for me, which I think is key here. And David in the chat a minute ago, I didn't start the comment, sorry, so I've lost it. But it said, like, what's the solution? I'll be honest with you, I don't know I can't sit here and describe the exact solution. What I do know is that we need someone who can handle. We need a combination of this. We need someone that's going to play attacking football that we're going to be entertained by. We need someone that can handle the pressure of being at a Man United. So, which means they've either got to have played regularly at this type of level, or have already managed at this type of level. And we need someone, as Jamie just said, that has got the appetite and understanding that at the beginning of next season, we are not going to be at the level that Arsenal are right now. We are not going to be at the level that kind of PSGs are at right now. I think our fans, if we could get those 3 things right, and it may not be a case that we can get, also we want the best possible manager available that fits that. So there's 4 things. You may not be able to hit all 4 of those boxes at once, but I think knowing and understanding the pressures of being at a club like Man United is absolutely key, and the way we play football and having the stomach and the appetite. If we get those 3 things right, the manager knows where we are and how long it's going to take to get the squad built and is accepting of it. We'll play good attacking football and we'll try and win football matches, but also can handle the media pressure and scrutiny that comes with it. I think we'll improve. So what I'm trying to do is, for me, I think what we're better off doing as a fan base, rather than discussing first who the manager should be, it's what does he have to encompass? Now, if you add into that, you want the best possible manager. That's just almost a prerequisite. So my view is, say you compare Michael Carrick to Luis Enrique. Luis Enrique is the elite guy. Okay, there's no question about that there. But does he understand managing a club the size of Man United? Yes. Where he's played, who he's managed, he gets that. He ticks those 2 boxes. Then you have to look at, does he have the stomach for where we are now? And he's happy to wait for the squad to be built, because we are not going to spend £800 million in the summer and build a squad. It's not happening. So does that fit and does it work? And then will he play the right kind of football? Yes, absolutely. So Luis Enrique ticks all the boxes for me, barring, does he have the stomach and the appetite to want to be at United right now? If he doesn't, and he's like, oh, I don't know, we have to walk away from him straight away. What you need is a manager that says, I want to do that. So for me, it's not about picking the names. It's about what do they have to encompass. And that's the most important thing for me. So if Michael Carrick is the guy that can handle the pressure, he's going to play attacking football, and he's got the stomach for the rebuild, but doesn't have the eliteness, that's better than me for bringing in an elite manager who doesn't have the stomach or the appetite for the club, because I think that will foul first. He'll lose interest first. He'll fall out with players, ownership. The media will start attacking him. Equally, you could have someone with more experience than Carrick, who's more elite than him, like a Zerbi, but he's never been anywhere near the pressure cooker of a Man United. Is he prepared for the rebuild weight? Because he seems to fall out quite a lot with his ownership. I look at it and go, that feels like it's going to end in disaster. So that's the way I'm kind of trying to view this as a Man United fan. And it's hard because Luis Enrique is the guy I want, but I don't know if we can get him. And then we've got to be really sensible with the next option after that. And it may just be that we need someone before the next guy. I'm prepared for that. But where you're right, Jamie, is a lot of Man United fans don't like that. So what we've got to make sure is that the manager will play good attacking football, because that way you'll get the Man United fans to buy in for a period of time, for me personally.
It's like a poison chalice, though, isn't it? It's like you're never going to get everything that you want. So it's about having some compromises to a certain extent.
I agree. And what buys you time? What often buys you time is how you play football. So even if we were winning 1 or 2 games a month, like under Ruben Amorim, but we were attacked. What lost the faith in Amorim for a lot of people? Some people didn't want him from day one, said it wouldn't work. Fair. What lost faith for a lot of people, for me, it wasn't just losing to Grimsby. It was our approaching games. It was the way, it's like, right, we need a goal. What's the option? Oh, he's taken off an attacker for a fucking centre-back. Or our centre-back's coming off. Cool. Who's coming on? One of the attackers? Another centre-back. He's kept 5 at the back. We'd start so many games with 7 to 8 defensively minded players and not even change it when we needed a goal. That's never... listen, every fan base can have their own views on these things. At Man United, you're always going to lose. You are always going to lose the fan base when you behave in that way. On top of that, we've got to keep pushing for the right players too. And it's funny that the Newcastle Chronicle have come out just now and said Sandro Tonali has reaffirmed his commitment to Newcastle amid links to Arsenal and Manchester United. Oh, he's fucking gone, isn't he? He's gone, isn't he? When they start doing the whole, I'm completely committed to Newcastle while sending their agent out to talk to other clubs. Fuck it, yeah. That's like a geezer. That's like a geezer sitting there, out for dinner with friends and family for his birthday. Going, listen, thank you to my friend Jamie and Jords that are here. My confidants, my confidants, my friends. Thank you. My beautiful children are here, and the most important person to me, my beautiful wife Flossie. Amazing. Couldn't be without her. Most amazing woman in the world. Thank you. Ding ding. What's that? Oh, it's my Tinder app telling me I've got a new match. That's what Tonali's doing right here. It's thank you, Newcastle. I love you. I'm committed to you. Ding ding. Tinder app's going off with clubs that are interested. But it's players like Tonali that Man United also need to add to our squad. We need players. We need another summer like last year, but the midfield needs to be bolstered. And I think that's also another way of maybe convincing a Luis Enrique-esque manager to go, look, this is our current squad, but in the summer it will be Tonali and it will be Wharton and it will be, I don't know, Diamande on the wing, and we're going to go out and sign a, Bastoni. I'm just making names up here, right? We need a summer like that where we're going out and again signing 4 or 5 top players. That's going to be important. So we'll see what happens.
Do you think there's a possibility that, one of those Luis Enrique type managers could come in and, Carrick still stays there as an assistant? Because obviously I know he's a head coach now and he's managed at a head coach level, but staying at Man United, having that, consistency within, he's still around and still got a good level. Do you think that could potentially work?
Yes, it could. It depends on what Carrick wants to do, especially if it's a case of the boot room, which is what Liverpool did throughout the 70s and 80s. And they had a lot of coaches within their setup. As soon as one moved on, a coach kind of got promoted to the manager, and they had a lot of success. You look at the Bob Paisley situation. My understanding is, if I get this wrong, Liverpool fans, you can't like the Paisleys and the Dalglish. It was all like with him, right?
It went Shankly, Paisley, Roy Evans. Oh no, it was a Dalglish, and then Roy Evans came in. Phil Thompson was there. Souness was there. Kind of started to deteriorate when Souness came in. To be fair,
yeah, but essentially it was you promoted from within. So maybe there's an opportunity to sort of do that, where you say to Carrick, "Look, we're going to make you part of the coaching staff," and someone like a Luis Enrique is coming in for the next 3 to 4 years. He'll probably move on after that, and then it'll be for you. There's an opportunity, but I think a bigger thing of that is having the right coaches. I know a lot of United fans weren't keen on Steve Holland, but you listen to some of the elite managers in the world that right now love Steve Holland. And there's a lot of good things being said about Jonathan Woodgate as well, who's tried being like someone who's fouled as a manager doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad coach. Yeah. And we've seen that with Brian Kidd. We've seen that with Rene Mullenstein at Man United. We've seen it with Carlos and others who were brilliant head coaches. And they were called assistant manager, but they were essentially a head coach. Brilliant head coaches at Man United. Steve McLaren in his heyday, brilliant coaches, but not brilliant managers. So I also think having elite coaches at United is great. One thing I didn't know about Ruben Amorim until halfway through his time with us is a good percentage of his coaches weren't even qualified, didn't even have the badges. No, exactly right, and those are the types of things you've got to pull away from. Like someone like a Steve Holland, who has helped coach teams to win massive major trophies. And again, I didn't like how we played football under Southgate, but that wasn't Steve Holland's ideas. He was just coaching them. The maddest bit was we actually played the way Southgate wanted us to play very well. We just didn't like how he was making us play, but we didn't play it badly, if that made sense. We were hard to beat in tournaments and went quite far in them and whatever else. But yeah, it's one of those things for me where Carrick could stay on in that capacity, and we could maybe build a bit of a conveyor belt of managers. The issue that you have is how similar their styles of play, and that's the biggest thing for me. Aside from everything, who we hire, is the club has got to decide something. For the past 6 years, we haven't had a first team that's played a style of football that is similar or the same as our academy teams. So you'll promote the academy players, and they go into a team that are training different, in a different shape, and operating differently. And I think we need to move. Listen, we say the modern day, well, we were doing this under Fergie, but Fergie run the club. But we've got to do this in a world now where if you get promoted from that academy into the first team, yes, it's a higher level of football, full-on men's football, but it shouldn't be a case of, right, you've now got to learn how to play this system. Our academy players should know how to play our first team system before our new signings do, because they should be doing it at the academy level. And I feel like that's something we've got to get right at Man United, because that will also, we have a lot of talent that comes through, but often they're not suited to how we play football in the first team. And that's crazy to me.
Do you know what's interesting there when you say that? Because I'm thinking about, you think about United's DNA. This is what we hear a lot. United's DNA and their style of play. And obviously all the old guys will come out and talk about it. And they always go to the manager, because that's what they know of Ferguson. But I suppose it comes down to like Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada. Did they understand the DNA of United and what should be going through the entire club? So when it comes to the academy and what they're being taught and how they should play and what the embodiment of Manchester United is. Because I would say along the way, since Ferguson has left, that's probably been lost. So are they instilling it, and are they bringing in the coaches that are probably not looked at and probably not reviewed as often as obviously the United manager is, in the same way that they do with a United manager? Because that's almost as important as you say, that's being brought through the entire club, rather than just bringing in a manager who's going to play a certain way, but like having the entire club understand what it means to be a United coach in any capacity.
You're spot on every level. And the new ownership have failed. The Glazers and Woodward failed miserably. Maybe they're going to try and recap that now, but it's important that you look at Ten Hag and you look at Amorim. They didn't play the way that the Man United fans want to. And this is one of those conversations where I don't care what rivals think. You guys don't have a DNA. I heard Jamie Carragher say, but your DNA only existed because of Sir Alex. I disagree. It goes back to Sir Matt Busby. We lost it. Sir Alex brought it back. But even if it was just Sir Alex, Jamie Carragher then went on, he had millions of football fans agree with him, to go there's not only a few clubs that have a DNA, and it's Barcelona and Ajax have one. Yeah, that was implemented by a couple of managers. The idea they have one because it's connected to certain manager style of football, and actually their identity is intertwined because it's from the same people. But yet, Man United are not allowed to say we have one, even if it was Sir Alex that instilled it. It exists, and it's what Man United fans now want to see from a way we play, and it isn't even sometimes stylistically, it's attitude. So, like we say with the Ruben Amorim, okay, we just conceded an equaliser to West Ham. There's 8 minutes of normal time to go, and in the end, it was 6 or 7 minutes added on. His reaction to that was to go, right, let's take a defender off and bring a defender on. Didn't try and attack anymore. You saw Fletcher tried this, didn't come out, but he tried to win both those games. Drew one, lost one. Disappointing, but Fletcher's not a manager per se. Carrick's come in. We attacked. We defended it rather than the way we attacked City. It felt like like relief. Arsenal game sat in to begin with because they were going to be like a freight train. And then as soon as their intensity dropped, which it does after 20, 25 minutes because no team can maintain it, then we started to attack. We conceded that equaliser late. What did we do? 6 men in the next attack. Bang, went and scored. Fulham. We actually messed up a little bit in this game when it went 2-1. We became too defensive. Conceded that late. Yes, it was a screamer, but we conceded. What did we do straight away? Back on the front foot. My feeling under Unai Emery and under Ten Hag at times, cup games would go for it, but league games it was okay. We'll just sit in now and not try and lose. And then we ended up losing a lot of those games. And that's, for me, it's an attitude and it's an intent to win. If we go for the win and get caught on the counter, I'm going to be annoyed that we lost. But we tried to win. We just sat back for the next 5 minutes against Fulham and conceded right at the end. We did that against Bournemouth. Started well, threw it away, got back in the lead, conceded another stupid goal. The last 15 minutes of the game, we had one attack. Lemaines had to make 3 great saves. We didn't try and win that game in the last 15 minutes. Now, I know that some clubs will go, but Terry, that's in my club's DNA. Terry, but my club does that. That's what our fans want. I'm not saying it's unique to Man United and it's in the sense we're the only ones who can have one, but it's just our way of doing things. Like my family have traditions on Christmas Day. I'm not saying other families don't do other families get up and walk their dogs. Other families, I make my kids like shower and get washed and dressed before we do presents, mainly because you've got things to do in the day. And if they're not dressed and ready and clean, it's hard to pull them away from their new toys. Why do I do that? Because my dad did it. I don't think I'm the only family that does it. Like we eat our Christmas dinner at 2:00. I know that we're not the only family that does it, but it's my tradition.
Nah, that's weird.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't like it. No, what it is because another little thing I do at home is like I'll make not a fryer, but we have like a sort of a bacon or a sausage sandwich in the morning. So I never really feel like eating too early, but it's what I do. Now, I actually stole that idea from an old boss of mine because I was like, oh, that'd be quite cool. Get up and have a bit of a sausage sandwich and a cup of tea and then open presents, walk the dog. I kind of like that. So we started doing it. And now it's traditional in my family. My kids know. My kids Christmas Eve sit down in their Christmas pajamas next to my dog. And we do a picture. And every year it's nice seeing all of them grow up at the same time. No, I know I'm not the only fucker that does it, but it's traditional in my house. And I think that United fans have got to grow a bit more of a backbone here. We have our traditions. I don't care if West Ham share some of them, Tottenham share some of them, Liverpool share some of them. This is what we do. And we need to fight to get that back. I think it's really, really important. Aside from that, gents, I want to get this in before the end of the show. Could Arsenal do the quad? Jords, could Arsenal do the quad this year? Because there's a mad thing, right? I just before the end of the game,
I back City more than I back Arsenal.
Well, that's part of the question. Could they do the quad, or are City going to win more trophies than them this year? But I found out an interesting stat, and I'm waiting for the Arsenal content creators to steal this from me and pretend it's their stat. But Arsenal have never been at this advanced in all competitions at this stage of the season ever. For this point in the camp, they've never been in a Carabao Cup final, the 5th round of the FA Cup, top of the Premier League and favourites to win the Champions League. They've never been in this position in their lives. And for me, there's a long fucking way to go. But could they do the quad? Or do you see it more likely that City will win more trophies than them?
They could, but they won't. As MUFC Football says in the chat, innit? Like I could fly, but I'm not gonna. I think it's more likely, and I said it the other day when I went live. I was just like, I still think City are going to upset the apple cart. I still think City are going to win the league. I think Arsenal are just going to crumble underneath the pressure. We see yet again last week, Brentford, a game where they're expected to win. They struggle, and they tend to struggle against these smaller sides that are really robust, physical, that can match them on the set piece side of things. As long as a team is really good at set pieces, defending set pieces and attacking set pieces, you're going to give Arsenal a problem. And, I think when it comes down to them versus City, I said it before, and I said it a couple of weeks ago, I think this Carabao Cup is going to be a huge, huge momentum push for either of the side. We know what it's done in the past for other teams, and especially Manchester City, that they've won this. They went 4 years in a row winning the Carabao Cup. They know exactly what winning this means and what it can do for your season, especially when they're in a run of where they're at right now. It's like a bit up and down. This Carabao Cup can regroup them, can rejuvenate them, and give them that little extra push that they need going into the end of the season. But look, Arsenal still are in the, they're still ahead. It's still their race. It's still up to them to sort of guide, and whether they drop points, it's all down for them to play, and it's all for them to play for. So, look, I think Arsenal, next game, it's a very important one. Got to make sure that they walk away with 3 big points away from home at Spurs, which should be easy for them, considering we're in a relegation battle and they're potentially having the best season of their life.
So I'm not going to see you, Jords, most likely before then. How do you see that game going on Sunday? Early prediction from you. How is the North London derby going, bruv?
Do you know what? I think it's gonna be a tight game. I do think it's gonna be a tight game. I think it's gonna maybe be like a 1-0. If any team does win, I'll just throw it out there. Arsenal are going to win if any team wins. I don't see Spurs winning. I think Spurs can nick a point, and I'll be happy with my point, because that's 1 point taken away towards Manchester City potentially come back. Now, if we get a point and City drop points, then this is all for nothing. I'm going to fucking fuming. I'm going to be going mental, because what are we doing this for? I'm gonna be like,
it's a free hit. It's a free hit for Spurs, isn't it? It's a free hit for you, Jords. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. Tudor coming in, new manager, you're kind of just seeing what happens.
They're in it does matter for Tottenham. If they lose this, I was looking at the league. I don't think this is why it's such an amazing game for me, right? And I don't want to spend too much time on this because we'll cover it more later on in the week. But I was looking at where's the league table gone? I was looking at the league table earlier today. If Spurs lose this weekend, okay. Now I know Forest are playing Liverpool, but they've got a decent record against them of late. If Spurs lose and Forest win, and if West Ham win, Spurs will be 1 point. Forget Forest. Forest could lose as well. If West Ham win and Spurs lose, Tottenham are 1 point above the relegation zone. It's you could argue, because Arsenal do have they've got that 4 point advantage. It's actually more important that Spurs win than Arsenal this weekend.
Definitely. I think we've got to look at our own and say, we need to get the 3 points. I'm just realistically, I don't think Arsenal are too hard to beat right now. And I think that's one thing we're going to see. And I've said it for a long time, even though I think Arsenal won't win the league, I still think Arsenal are going to finish on the least amount of losses in the league. I still think they're not going to be beaten many times. I think I could probably only see Arsenal losing another 3 or 4 games till the end of the season, if even that. But the problem with Arsenal is they're not killing off enough teams. I'm not seeing them put enough goals behind teams. I'm not seeing them, that Brentford game, they should have dealt with them. 2-0, 3-0, done, sharp, game done. And that's what you need from your team at this point in the season, because the schedule's only going to get harder. You said it, they're still competing in every competition. We're having Arsenal fans already complain at the fact that they have to play 3 games in 7 days while Spurs are resting. That's how a title race is going to be. That's how going for a quad is going to be, especially once you get the Champions League back into it. So we've got to stop hearing the excuses, stop hearing all of that other stuff.
That's what I agree with them massively. Listen, do I think they're going to win the quad? No. Okay, because look, for 70 to 80 years, teams have tried to win trebles. It's been done twice. The treble has been done twice in 80 odd years. It is so hard. The luck they have. Listen, I brought this up as a conversation today because a lot of people started bringing it up yesterday. For me, I feel it only becomes a viable conversation after the League Cup final. Once they have that, if Arsenal win that, then I think the conversations can start. But I think the luck of the draw in both the Champions League and the FA Cup will play a part. For instance, everyone's praying they get Mansfield at home, as an example, in the next round. Those are the types of things that can help Arsenal because of the strength of their squad. in the sense of if Arsenal can get some cup ties now where they're able to rotate, like yesterday, 9 first-team players came out of their team, but it still looked like a first team. Does that make sense? If they can do that for another couple of rounds in the FA Cup, they've got their chance of a quad or a treble, I think, increases further. Equally, if a lead in the league does get created, if City don't continue this resurgence and drop points in the next 2 or 3 games, and Arsenal do get 10, 11 points clear, then again, that would help them do it because they could actually then start to rest some players for some Premier League games for the latter stage of the FA Cup and the Champions League. But that's the only way I see Arsenal doing it right now. And I mean it with no disrespect. If they have to play the strongest 11 for the quarterfinals, semis, and of course the final of both the FA Cup and the Champions League, and if City maintain a 2, 3, 4 point gap between now and the end of the season, there's no rotation in that. And the problem is, I think if you're going hell for leather in all 3 of those tournaments at the same time, the likelihood of winning it is so low because something's got to give somewhere, and it probably will. And what you'll probably find is that if it is that tight in the league and you've got really hard Champions League ties, which are going to be really hard, you're probably going to keep rotating for your FA Cup games for freshness, and eventually you're going to have to rotate and you're going to play a Liverpool or you're going to play a City or you're going to play a Chelsea, and they might knock them out. So it's a very hard thing to do, but Arsenal have never been at this stage before in the season. They've never been this deep and favoured in all these competitions at this stage, and they've got to go for it as best they can. I mean, they've got there's a chance of greatness, there's a chance of unprecedented history. And I think fans should just embrace the idea of it. Don't get carried away and say it's definitely happening. But I'd love to be in that position. I remember when you guys were in this position. And I remember shitting myself as a United fan going, oh, can you imagine these bastards did the quad? Like, in the end, you end up with 2 domestic trophies, which was still good. But you were a Villa. I still think if Villa hadn't have come back if Villa hadn't have collapsed and City won the Premier League, I think you'd have beaten Real Madrid in the final. If you'd have won the Premier League in that final day of the season, I think you win the Champions League as well.
It's like it's history. You know what I mean? It's like written that like you go on and do it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Do you think you mentioned earlier, Jamie, you think City might win more trophies? But unpack that for me.
No. Not that they won't win more trophies. Just on the Arsenal thing, I think Arsenal have been to 1 Champions League final in their history. They've been to 3 semi-finals. I think the best thing for them to do is to focus on the Premier League. I think obviously I'm not saying throw the Champions League competition, but I think like winning a Champions League, you see like with City, PSG, it takes a lot of momentum and a lot of like energy to get to that level where you can go on and try and win it. And City obviously then went on and won the Champions League, but they had 6 Premier Leagues in their back pocket before, or 5, I think, before they won it. You know what I mean? It took them a long, long time to get to that stage where they were able to, and the mentality had shifted to be able to do it. Chelsea the same. They'd won Premier Leagues, but it took them so long to get to a Champions League in 2012. So what I would say to Arsenal fans and Arsenal as a club, I would say focus on the Premier League. I think the thing is with Man City, I don't think they'll win more trophies than them. They might win the same number as them, but like I think they could definitely beat them in the Carabao Cup final. That's one. I think if I was Arsenal, I'd be focusing on the Premier League and getting that over the line. And then Man City in the Champions League. I don't think they're the best team in the Champions League, but they have a little bit of experience now. They're obviously they got through in the last 8, so they have one less, say, knockout game. And on a one-off Champions League tie, they're as good as anyone. You know what I mean? They have the players that can do damage. So like they could potentially win it. And then they're still in the conversation for the Premier League. You can't write them off with that either. I think for Arsenal's sake, like if Man City miss out on the Champions League or Premier League, it's not the end of the world. But like if Arsenal don't do it, like that's bedlam for them. Do you know what I mean? Because of like they're trying to get to that stage where they get over the line. And if they miss out when everyone else is weak or not performing to the level that they should have, then I think that looks even worse than say anything else.
So I don't overly disagree with you. I think the Premier League should be there right now. Again, Arsenal fans, you may disagree. Let us know in the comments section. If you're creating a sort of a priority table right now, the Premier League has to be number 1. It's when your manager is thinking about who he rotates and who he plays and who you plays his strongest teams against, the Premier League has to be the priority right now. Where that can change is depending upon the lead you have in the Premier League. And you know, as we say, if, for instance, they beat Wolves this week and they go 7 points clear, and then at the weekend they beat City, lose at home to Newcastle, and they beat Tottenham and they go 10 points clear, then they might look at it and go, well, actually, the next FA Cup game that we're in, we've got a tough game and we're home to Chelsea. But actually, let's go full strength in the FA Cup game and maybe rotate a little bit in the league because we've now got a 10-point gap and you've got an insurance policy. Then I think you can adjust it. But right now, as it stands, with only a 4-point gap, I say only. I'd love to be top of the league by 4 points as a Man United fan at this stage. It's mad how we could sometimes you say things out loud and you listen to it and go, that sounds like I'm saying it's only a 4-point lead at the top. Who wouldn't swap places with Arsenal right now? The answer is nobody. Everybody would. But no, I think you're right. They have to prioritize the Premier League as an example. I feel that the quad talk, for me personally, should only really start if they win that Carabao Cup. Because once you've won that, that's when you go, okay. Well, because again, that's going to be in another month's time. Let's see where they are. Because they win that Carabao Cup, and by then they're 8 points, 9 points clear at the top of the Prem, through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and into the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. It's a very different conversation then. Equally, it could all be different by the time we get to that stage. So how many trophies do you guys think City will win this year, though? Because I know that they're only 4 points off the top in the league, but still defensively, there seems to be problems with them. You know, Salford probably should have equalised 2 or 3 times before it went 2-0 at the weekend. Exeter created chances against them. Yes, they beat Fulham, but Fulham really, again, in the first half, should have scored 2 or 3 goals. It seems to be a common theme with their games at the moment. They're winning a lot, but they're vulnerable in a lot of games. Liverpool really should have gone 2-0 up, 2-1 up in that 2-0 up in that game really before they came back. So do you see City winning trophies this season? I mean, they can. They're in the final of the Carabao Cup, so they've got a 50-50 chance of winning it. But do you see them adding Prems and Champions Leagues to this campaign, Jamie?
I think they'll win the Carabao Cup. I don't know. With Arsenal right now, I still think Arsenal are in pole position to win the Premier League, and down to the point that you obviously said there, I think defensively they're a lot better, and they just need to obviously figure some things out going forward. They obviously right now, I think going forward they're not clicking, and I know some people have said they've scored the second amount of goals, and that's why they're obviously where they are now. But if that declines a little bit, then they'll start getting dragged into a proper title race with City, where City maybe go ahead of them, or they're not able to increase their lead. And if they go into, say, deeper in the Champions League and in the FA Cup, then it's a lot more taxing on them to be able to compete. But I think City have obviously brought in Gahey. I think that will help. Aiton Nuri has obviously come back. Nico Riley is there. He's starting to perform better, has performed well for most of the season. And yeah, City still aren't right for me 100%. And when I say not right, it's difficult because you're comparing it to like treble winners, like 4 times in a row winners. Do you know what I mean? And you're saying they're not at that level, and they're not at that level. I think even City fans would agree with that. But I probably think to get over the line this season, to win a Premier League, to win the Champions League, they maybe need to up their level a little bit more than what we've seen. Like I think they've obviously beaten Liverpool and Wolves now in the Premier League, but that's the only 2 wins that they have in the Premier League in 2026. So like from that perspective, they need to improve on that. And I think a winning away at Anfield is huge for them. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a ground that historically they have absolutely hated. So that'll obviously give them a little bit more confidence. I think it'll be interesting. Obviously, Arsenal have to go to the Etihad, and then the Carabao Cup game. I think that's in the space of like 3 or 4 weeks, and they could potentially play during the Champions League as well. So like, there's still a lot of the moving parts, and we'll obviously figure a lot more things out, I'd say, in the next kind of 4 weeks. But yeah, I think I'm still going to lean Arsenal more than anyone else than I would say City to win more trophies this season.
Me personally, I think I've got City nailed on to win 2, and that would be the Carabao Cup and the Premier League. Now, obviously, the Premier League's more hope than anything. I need them to win that, but I think they'll get over the line eventually with Arsenal giving up there. But I actually think Arsenal could win the FA Cup. When you look around at the teams in it, I think Arsenal are probably the favourites to go and do that. That's their competition, and you know they've won it the most for a reason. So I think Arsenal could probably still win an FA Cup there. But with the Carabao Cup, I think City are just going to have too much of them in a final and in a one-off game. We see even in that Liverpool game, like Liverpool are better for the majority of it, but Manchester City just have that killer instinct in their team where they can take advantage of minimal moments and still beat you. And I think that's probably what will happen in that game versus Arsenal. But yeah, Champions League's a write-off. I don't think any of the Premier League teams are going to be good enough to win the Champions League. Like I said, I think Manchester City are just
We're winning it. We're winning it. The experience,
I
the
don't know,
know-how of winning the Champions League. We're doing it. Absolutely, we're winning it.
I don't know, man. I think some of the other European sides is just a little bit too strong. When you look at PSG, Bayern, I know Real Madrid haven't been that strong, but I think them in the Real Madrid, like you talk, in the Champions League, when you talk about know-how, they always tend to turn it up. They know when to turn it up. So
we already beaten them this year, so we'll beat them again.
Didn't you do that last year? Was it Man City you done it last year in the group stages? It was either.
No, we beat them last year 2-0 in the group stage as well.
Yeah, and when it matters, we all know what happened. So yeah, I think for me, I still see City winning a couple trophies, and I think they'll win more than Arsenal. And even if Arsenal win the Premier League, I still think City might win more than them because they could do them the Carabao Cup and FA Cup. Like I just think they're going to win some more.
Mm.
Yeah, look, it's certainly going to be an interesting one to see where all the trophies go. Because in recent years, since City did the treble, the trophies have been quite spread out every single year. If that makes sense, you know, they've been. Has anyone won more than one in a season since City did their treble? I don't actually know the answer. No, I think they might have won. They must have won the Premier League and FA Cup together, City, when they won, when they beat us in the final.
Wasn't it you guys?
No, that was the treble
years ago. Yeah, that was the treble season. Then you beat them the season after. Yeah,
so that was the treble winning season. Year after, we won the FA Cup. Liverpool won the. I can't even remember, but I don't think. Yeah, it's just been a few years now.
We won the. Was it the Carabao Cup? What? No, yeah, we won the Carabao Cup last year. It was Klopp's 2 years ago. That was Klopp's last season, and yeah, so I think
Man United won it, and then last year
they won the FA Cup. Yeah. So since City have won the treble, Liverpool have been the most successful team in England. Just saying.
I love those stats. People always did that with Roman and Chelsea. Like from this date, from Roman's era to here, we were the most successful team. But if you went back like 2 extra years, United were. If you extended it an extra 3 years, then Liverpool were, or whatever else. Like I would love those kind of stats. I really, really do. Look, I want to thank everyone who's tuned into the show today. A really good conversation on a Monday morning. I hope you all enjoyed it. Lots of differences in opinions. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe. We're back later today with a Done Deal show, plus some more content for you in the evening as we build up to a busy week of Champions League and Premier League football for everyone to sink their teeth into. Until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye-bye.